Welcome to the PEPP Story live show, where tonight my guest is Stuart Harris. Stuart's someone I've got to know very well over the past 4 or 5 years from Scotland. He's been the president of the Scottish branch of the PSA. He calls it he was the national president because, well, anyway, we're going to have a good chat about Stuart's story as a speaker and what he's doing now. So let's get on. Oh, right, Stuart. Hi. Sorry, something flipped up on screen in front of me. This is the I keep thinking, yeah, if this was live TV, I'd have a whole studio full of people pushing buttons and making sure everything worked, doing the VT and
normal.
But here we have to do it all ourselves and go for fun. But this is actually quite fun. So, Stuart, yes, but what, 5 years we've known each other now, isn't it? I think probably about.
Oh,
that.
yeah.
So because I obviously knew Kenny quite well for your brother, so we're going to be talking about. Well, let me ask that first question. What actually took you into speaking? How did you get here?
Oh, where do you want me to start? Oh, long story. I moved. The bridge was going from training to speaking.
Right.
There were many bridges before I got to that, to training. So I was doing a number of training workshops for some clients, and a few of them said, "Listen, we've got a conference coming up. Rather than just speaking to groups of 12, 14, 15, 20, maybe, could you come and speak to our conference?" And I said, "Yeah, absolutely fine, no problem at all. When is it? Where is it? All this, what's the theme? Blah, blah, blah." Last question. Well, after the how much, I think I was probably too frightened to even ask that question. But I did ask the question, how many people are going to be there? 450. That's a bigger gig than 15 people in a training workshop, but I did it, and could I have done it better? Possibly. Was it possibly the best learning experience I've ever had in my life? Very much so.
There is quite a shift, isn't there, from doing that training meeting with 15, 20 people to suddenly being with a room where you can't engage with everybody because
very, very much so. And you said we know each other from the Professional Speaking Association. And while I was a trainer, and I still call myself a trainer, a workshop leader, or facilitator, whatever. But I used to go along to Professional Speaking Association events, we call them in Scotland. And thanks for picking up on the fact that I was a national president, not a regional president, which really ticks off the rest of the UK. Even the Welsh can't call themselves a national president. So, but I'd go along and I'd see people like my brother Kenny, who spoke on marketing and creativity. I'd see Jeff Ram, I'd see Will Kintish, I'd see, Alan Stevens, the cream of the crop. And I'd sit there and go, yeah, they're good, but I think I could do that. And they're only addressing a room of 20 people. So it wasn't it's probably closer to what I was doing than I made, and I asked a number of people, probably the names that I mentioned, every month, we'd have a wee coffee in the bar, obviously. And I'd say, what's the difference between speaking and training? And you know what the answer is going to be, and it tended to be your day rate. Often, what you charge for a training workshop, you'll charge for, add a zero to the end of it. You know all the cliches that go on. For a whole day, you'll get a lot more for 45 minutes, and that just blows your mind. And you go, how could I possibly? How? And of course it's number and value, whatever it is that you're doing. And that was just a stock answer that I was getting from people until one night I said to Ken, I said, "What's the difference here? Come on, what's it all about?" And he said, "Okay, fine. You're a good trainer. You're an excellent trainer." I said, "How do you know? You've never seen me." And he said, "Because you get clients like Sky Television and Aviva, XYZ, a whole load of major clients," and said they get you back time and time again. If you weren't very good, you wouldn't get the invite back. And he said, but what do you do that makes you stand out? What's your USP? And I said, well, engagement. I think I bring a bit of humour to it. I know the stuff. A lot of clients will say, my guys don't know whether you're one of our employees or whether they brought you in as a specialist, which is a great compliment. Because, and so I said that to Kenny. So I lived their values, but I knew their values. I studied them before I went, stood up. And Kenny said, but what? Okay, fine. So, but what makes? And I said, well, I can adapt, so if we've got people in the room that are maybe struggling a wee bit, we can change the pace. If the guys are getting it, I can move on. You can read a room I think I can read a room. I said, okay, fine. It is that to a certain extent with professional speaking, but and it's a word I've never ever heard anybody else use. And he said, but with speaking, it's replicability. And I said, how do you mean? And he said, imagine a speaker booker comes to you and he sees you sitting in sees you presenting at an event, then they go to another client and go, we want a guy that does this, this, and this. Stuart's the guy for you. And then I turn up and I throw something completely different in. Now, the replicability part, I think is maybe about 70, 80% of here's my story, here's my tips, techniques, strategies, points, but I put my own spin in it. And obviously I personalize it to that client by maybe 20, 30%. But it's that somebody sees you doing what you do, they need to be able to see you doing that for another one of the clients or another department within their organization. So sorry, Ricky, you're going.
No, I said I've had people, they book me and say, "Oh, you are going to do such and such a story. You are going to do, aren't you?" And it's like this. Yeah, I saw that, and that's why you're here, because I saw that and really loved that bit. And I think one of the things that people don't understand about speaking is that I trained as an actor. I was going to get to drama school, but didn't quite make it. And then I realized that I would have to use somebody else's words and repeat them night after night after night, year after year after year. And I thought, I'm not sure whether I want to do that. And then I ended up in training and then doing speaking. And I suddenly realized eventually that my main keynote speeches through the years, once I've got them, once they're sorted, I repeat it over and over and over again. It sounds like it's just come off the top of my head, but if you saw me speak last night, it's the same speech. And I've always said the mark of a true professional speaker is that the ad libs are rehearsed to perfection.
Yes. Yeah.
Go.
I was just going to say another thing that came up in conversation was when we talked to Kenny, was him. Somebody said it's like a bit like going to see a comedian. If you go to see Billy Connolly, you want to see his classics. You want to see your crucifixion. You want to see his Welly Boots song. You want to hear him doing this or that or the other. And I thought, I don't know if I do, because once I've heard a joke or a gag, I wouldn't go and see Jimmy Carr 3 nights in a row or 4 nights in a row.
No.
And want to see the same thing. However, if I went to see, and I went to see David Bowie 22 times.
Yes.
And I still want to see Ziggy Stardust and Starman and Rebel and Diamond Dogs and some of the later ones, but I want to see the classics. And in that 22 day event gig burst, sometimes I'd go to see him 4 nights in a row. And thankfully now we would change up a bit. But if he tried to walk out of there, and it's not one of my favourite songs, but if he will try to walk out there without doing Life on Mars, he'd get skinned.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think what we do is there's a blend of the two. You need to bring in the classics. I've got some great stories that I bring in regarding customer service and retention and stuff like that. I picked up looking at your website. This is your passion, isn't it? Customer service. Yes, it always has been. We were talking earlier on. What did I want to be when I left school? When I left school, at that time, I'd have been about 15, 16 years old, 17 maybe. And my cousin Linda used to come round and cut my mum's hair and my gran's hair and whoever else, and walk away with a bundle of money. And I'm sitting there as a 15, 16-year-old going, that looks like a great gig. You know, you're getting as much tea as you want, sandwiches, you're getting fed, you're having a great time, you're in comfort, you're in friends and family, and a handful of money. You know, £10 here, £20 or whatever it would be. I thought that's a great job. So I thought I'm going to be a hairdresser when I leave school, and crashed and burned, and I couldn't get a job. I just couldn't get it because they're like, just back in those days, the 70s, like, you're a guy, what? No, maybe come back some other time. So I got a job in a local hotel, and I was started as a general assistant. This is step number one in your career path to hotel management, which I thought I want to get to the top. I was a general assistant, which basically means general dog's body. So you do work in the bar, you work in the restaurant, you work in the kitchen, you work in reception, you work in housekeeping, you do a wee bit of admin, just to tick the box. And I thought, I hate the kitchen, and I hate reception, and I hate housekeeping. I want to be front of house. I want to be cooking at the tables and spinning cocktails and throwing them up and flambing cakes and God knows what else. So I think I was a show off then, and I think what I do now is still a form of showing off with purpose. Showing off with purpose. It sounds a bit like what do you call the guy from Toy Story, Buzz Lightyear. You know, so I got into customer service when I was probably 18, 19, and you go, God, that's a long way from where you are now. Only the way I do it. You know, it's still, how do you deliver great service? How do you look after your customers? How do you find out what they need and what they want? And when I was in my mid-20s, so mid-80s, I worked in a hotel in St Andrews in Scotland. The guy that owned the hotel was a Scottish expat who lived out in Florida, and he had a couple of hotels. And before I was assistant manager, the manager was leaving in 6 months, and the owner said, I want you to be the manager, but I want you to come to America to see what Americans expect. Now, I don't know how well you know St Andrews, full of Americans. During the summer, golf mad. He said, but I want you to come out and find out what they're looking for. I'll pay for your flights. I'll pay for your accommodation while you're eating in my hotels. I'll pay for your food. Your drinks are on your own ticket. And if you eat outside or stay anywhere else, obviously, you know, I'm down to Key West and God knows where else. And he said, you're on your own dollar. But while you're in my places, I just want you to come, eat for free, sleep for free, but watch what the Americans are looking for. And I came back with a whole slew of, this is what we're going to do differently. You know,
I've got it's an interesting story about the difference between the Americans and the British in hospitality. I used to be in the insurance industry, and one of the places that we regularly went to when it first opened was the TGI Fridays in Birmingham. That was where they started. It was on the Headley Road. And it was a place where insurance people used to get absolutely rat-assed on Long Island tea.
Wasn't making bad people.
But I've gone in there, and quite literally, this was in the 80s. I've walked out of there, and we actually spoofed for a £90 bill for three of us for lunch. Which then was a lot.
But how much liquid and how much solid was there?
But the thing that was interesting was they'd opened up TGI Fridays, and it had utterly and completely crashed. So the Americans came over, and they had a look around. They said, "Okay, fine, shut this place down." Flew over some of their trainers, and they said, "Right, you're going into 1 week of training." And they went through all the training, and they said, "Right, we open on whatever day it was. We open. The food will be free for 1 week."
Wow.
Now, what happened, obviously, when they put the flyers out everywhere, free food for a week, it was rammed. There were people desperately trying to get in. The place was queued up, and they said, right, this is what's going to happen. You are going to basically have 1 week, the biddiest you will ever have seen in a restaurant. And you are going to have to pull it off all the way through. And you're going to have to give the level of service that we expect. He said, after this, it's going to be a breeze. But that's exactly what happened. Everybody went into this place. It was absolutely rammed. The atmosphere was amazing. The staff thought this was fabulous, dealing with all these people. They were taught all these techniques for getting down and getting one-to-one with the clients. never looked back after that. Just became the place everybody wanted to go, because it had that atmosphere. But I thought, no, that's pretty amazing. Now, obviously, people paid for drinks, but the thing that happened is that if the food's free, you just spend all the money you would have paid on food
on drinks,
on more drink.
Yeah, and back in those days, because I would have been in the mid-80s. I don't know when you're talking about. But back in those days, you know, and especially when I was out in the States, and I've been there a number of times since. But you know, but the whole thing about, you know, have a nice day, and it's genuine. You know, as you're leaving a restaurant or a bar, you know, have a lovely evening, have a nice day, whatever. But of course, in the 80s in the UK, you just know people are going to go, well, I'm not going to have a nice day just because you've told me to have it. And you just go, and you know, the simplest things about, which was groundbreaking back then, you know, when you're taking food out or taking things away, use a tray. Can I just carry it? No, use a tray. When somebody sits down, take over a jug of iced water. What? Nowadays, like, you wouldn't go into a restaurant without getting a jug of water, and often still having to ask for it, and having to.
It's a relationship, isn't it? Very quickly.
Yeah.
The same sort of thing. I mean, when we go on stage, the first thing I know I've got to do is I've got to create some relationship. So I'm going to go up stage, and I usually throw out a fairly bold question about, is it a man or is it a boy or a girl? Because this is and start to get people thinking and rethinking the idea of gender. Then I go into a personal story about some, rubbish stuff that happened to me, and how by the time we're 10 minutes in, they know me. And they've got some sympathy with me, because they're now beginning to think, oh my God, I never realized it was so tough. Now they're going to listen to the whole story because they want to know how they can help. So, but I think it's great. Now, I noticed, I did notice looking through your CV that stand-up comedy. So obviously coming from the home of Billy Connolly, you've obviously got...
That's why I'm sitting down right now, so you can't go, well, you weren't very funny doing your stand-up. I'm doing sitting down. I've never said I'm funny sitting down. Yes, I've tried it. I went in who's a good pal of mine, a guy called John O'Brien, who's big in the Glasgow comedy circuit. And he advertised a comedy workshop in Glasgow, one of the Yes Bar, it's called, in town. And, comedy workshop, 3 hours, 4 hours it was, £10 for the whole afternoon. So it can't be that bad. So I turned up with along about another 12 or 13 people. And John turned up, and like a lot of comedians, he's not the most admin-y person, he's not the most structured person, but he turned up, and we're all there waiting for him in a bar, a room in the back of a bar in Glasgow. And he's the last person in the room, and as he's taking his jacket off, he's going, right, what do you want to know? No, this is a workshop. You're meant to be the expert. You tell us how to write a gag, how to address an audience, how to deal with a heckler, how to do this. What happens if people don't laugh? And he went, okay, we'll get to that. But what I want you to do is a 5-minute routine. And went along the row and said to the first guy, what do you do? I've only been doing it a couple of years. I've not made any money. What do you do? I've been at 3 or 4 years. What do you do? I'm starting to make money. What do you do? I write for him. What do you do? I deliver the stuff that he writes. And he got to me and said, what about you? I said, I've just bought a notepad in W.H. Smith's. I'm starting with a blank sheet of paper, literally as well as figuratively. And he went, right, okay, fine. Work on that. You get 5 minutes. You got an hour to write 5 minutes. I didn't have a clue. Again, I love learning experiences. And the Sunday afternoon, we're all trying different things. And he said, right, okay, fine. What's the worst thing that can happen? And somebody went, nobody laughs. He said, right, okay, fine. That's our next exercise. So we went round the room. Each one of us had to go up and deliver our same 5 minutes to develop that. But the audience weren't allowed to laugh. So the rest of the group, 12, 13 of us, were sitting there as people were delivering their funny straight face. You weren't allowed to laugh. You weren't allowed to smile. You weren't allowed to give them a knowing nod. And at one stage, one guy, once I had done my turn, at one stage, one guy looked over at me with that, chuck me a bone, help me out here. And he looked at me and I just went, looked at my watch and looked away. And it was the worst thing, but what an experience. So I've done that. I've done a few things at Edinburgh Festival. I've done a few things at Glasgow, the Glasgow Stand. My first ever gig It was a place at the Stand Comedy Club in Glasgow. I was on second. Why? But I was on second of 12 people. It was a comedy. You only move in circles. But the guy said at 9 o'clock, we've got a local comedian coming in. He's going to be trying some new material. 9 o'clock, this guy came in with slippers on, an old pair of tracksuit trousers, a big jumper, clipboard. Right, I'm going to try some new material. Some of it will work, some of it won't work. Do you know who it was? Frankie Boyle. So I can, and I think I have put on my CV, I have opened a comedy night for Frankie Boyle, you know, so it's scary. It really is scary. And I'm perfectly fine with standing up in front of people, but coming up with the funny. And of course there's tumbleweed moments as well, you know, so you just go with it. You know, so
I've done a couple of I've turned up and done a couple of open mics sessions because I think it's you've been through Toastmasters, done humorous speech contest things where you got 7 minutes, and I know that I add humor into my talk.
Yeah.
But when I have tried to do just comedy, just straight comedy, I crashed and burned. I crashed and burned badly at a PSA event because I just couldn't remember the punchline. I have this horrible thing of when it's a story you're telling, it's fine, but when it's a sort of a joke, and you suddenly forget a particular part of the joke, you know the joke's not going to work, but you're halfway through it, you think, oh shit, I forgot that bit.
I can't back out. I can't back out. Yeah, I think I recommended to back in the day we had a PSA members page,
right?
And back in the day, I said, I've just done this comedy workshop. I think everybody that speaks or trains or presents should at least go to a comedy workshop. You might not take to the stage, but go to a comedy workshop, learn the craft, because there's so many transferable skills. Writing new material, because you can't rip off the thing that you saw on the Dave channel or, you know, live at the Apollo. You can't do that because people see it all now. They see it on YouTube or Facebook or all these guys. So it's got to be new. It's got to be edited and then edited and then edited and then edited and rehearsed. And you've got to be able to deliver it without and I've seen.
I think people don't get the amount that we have to go into to rehearse something. I mean, a keynote for me, my keynote sort of evolves from year to year. It's basically the same thing. I used to do a 5-hour workshop, and then people said, "Oh, we're going to have to do this in half a day now because there's no money." So I had to chunk it down to half a day. And then people said, "Can you just come along and do that in half an hour?"
Yeah.
So suddenly you got to get the same content into half. Taking something that's 3 hours long. My first ever big keynote was taking half a day training in sales for insurance salespeople and concentrate it down into 30 minutes. And the process, I reckon I spent 150 hours. And this is material I'd already been training for 3 years. But it actually took me 150 hours of really hard work to take material I knew, cut it down and play with it until it was actually a theatrical production of 30 minutes and then perform it.
And I think that's a great point. I think what a number of people, especially people who are transitioning from being solely a trainer to doing some keynoting, I think what a lot of people do is try and, what's the old expression? Try to squeeze a litre of beer into a pint pot. They go, well,
too much content.
I've got this, 7 hours, 6 hours, whatever it is. And okay, there's breakouts and whatever, all this sort of stuff, and flip chart exercises and all that stuff. So I need to get all of this into that. And it doesn't work. You got to go, let's cherry pick and not just what's my best bits. What's the best bit that is most relevant to that client and that client's needs just now? What challenge are they facing? What pain are they going through that you can help them out with, not throwing in the kitchen sink.
I think it's the key to a great speech is not what you put into it, it's what you leave out.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
And you have to be prepared to let go of stuff that you're really precious about, but you have to think, no, it isn't actually right on target. I'll just until you're left with what is absolutely essential and what flows together and works together.
I was having a chat with somebody, Jeremy Nicholas isn't.
Oh yeah,
another fellow. And it was funnily enough, I was talking to him today, and he was saying he's got a program that helps speakers called Tickle Your Keynote, and it's a matter of how do you become funny? How do you not necessarily write gags or stand-up comedy, but how do you add humor into what you do? And he said, I was working with somebody yesterday, earlier in the week, and he said, I was coming up with about 25 different things that he could have used in his talk. And the guy went, well, I don't like that, and I don't like that. And I said, well, what about this? Yeah, I could use that. And I said, I think you probably more so than anybody else, you've got to make sure that you go, what is relevant at that time? Not get upset when somebody goes, I'm not going to add that line into my talk. And Jeremy, you said, I don't. I said, there's a bag of other things. And I said, it's not like deciding between your children, which one's your favorite child. It's a matter of, okay, fine, that one is right for that exercise. And I said, it's not Sophie's choice. And he said, it's exactly the case. He said, I've got to be able to think what is most relevant, and then it's down to the individual, what they take, so yeah, I'll drop in a recommendation because I've been on his course, and I know we're not here advertising, especially other people, but he's got a number of different things.
I'm going to try and get Jeremy on the once I go past this challenge for 31 days. I'm going to be doing one a week. So just to finish off, what's happening this year? I mean, for so many speakers, this is. I think none of us thought last March that we'd be here a year later, facing still another year of pretty much no meetings industry. So how are you coping with that?
Last year, I was doing a big management program. It was workshops for one of the big banks, and I probably my busiest year the year before, because it was like a thing that was going to last about a year, 3 days a week, for 2 weeks of the month. And I had my diary filled like that for the next 4 months. And then in March, numbers started dropping. And then, of course, Mr. Johnson comes out on a Friday night and says, okay, fine, as of tomorrow, don't go drinking, stay at home, wrap up warm and wash your hands. And I got a phone call on the Monday, said, Stuart, everything has been cancelled for the next foreseeable. Nobody knows for when. There's nothing in the diary. We will pay you for the next month. But after that, and that was the last big gig. And of course, I don't get into training workshops now. Not just because I don't want to, but because clients aren't hosting them, or conferences. So I've and the expression in our industry, pivot. And it's not a matter of completely changing what I do. It's what do I do? Help people win customers, serve them better, and keep them longer. But I just do it through a different medium. So I'm still in the throes of creating online courses, and so people can do. I'm going to jump on for 20 minutes, or even 10-minute videos, or half an hour interviews, or whatever it might well be. So that's where I put. And I don't know whether I'm going to get back into workshops or conferences for 500 people. I'm hitting a significant birthday next month. Yes, 40. I'll weigh 40 next month. But but I don't know if I can go, well, I'll wait 5 years and then I'll start marketing and then start hoping that I don't know whether I'll take to the stage. And we all love being Robbie Williams. We all just want to go up and get the fireworks and let me entertain you and all that sort of stuff.
The problem is you can't lie about your age and then say you saw Ziggy Stardust.
When I was 11, I was 11.
I know. Well, I was actually a little bit older, but August 1971, Finsbury Park, Rainbow Theatre, watching Roxy Music do the warm up, and then Ziggy Stardust. And
Roxy Music doing the Strand. Okay.
It was one of the most amazing concerts I have ever been to in my life. Lindsay Anderson had done all the stuff, staging all these dances and things on there. Just
Lindsay Anderson does Thunderbirds. Lindsay Kemp does the dance.
Lindsay Kemp. Sorry, yes.
Don't get them mixed up.
Yeah. Anyway, Stuart, I gather that's the best place to find you, the stuartharris.com.
It is, yes. And it sounds very pompous. Because I tell people it's not this Stuart Harris, it's the Stuart Harris.
Yes.
And the only reason that happened is because I tried to get stuartharris.com or .co.uk, and I think there's a gardener in America that's got .com and a photographer in the UK that's got .co. So I had to go, did I go .biz, did I go .whatever? And I thought, the Stuart Harris. So when I get introduced onto stage, ladies and gentlemen, the Stuart Harris online learning program. So I've had it for about 15 years, and it's only now coming to fruition because I can call it the Stuart Harris Learning Lab. You know,
it's perfect.
Find me there, or find me on
Twitter. I have the gender speaker. Well, actually, a gender speaker I've got, but I mark it as that. Stuart, it's been really great talking to you, and we've been seeing each other on all sorts of things over the past year. It's been actually good, isn't it? Just getting to know each other through this online environment. Yeah, Stuart, thank you very much indeed. I'm just going to do a quick close down, and we'll see where we go in a minute. So,
lovely chatting.
Yep. Thank you. Oh, okay. Get rid of that. There we go. Do me there. Okay, fine. So I hope you've enjoyed the show talking to Stuart. Lots of interesting stuff there. I think the most important thing that I've got from listening to Stuart is, speaking isn't something you don't wake up one day and think I'm going to be a speaker. That's not a career path that you start off from school. But as you develop your experiences and skills, the opportunities come. And if you've developed your skills as a speaker, a career as a speaker suddenly opens up and you're there. So I hope you've enjoyed today. Don't forget that I've got lots of, you can basically drop me an email at ricky@rickyarundel.com. If you're looking at trying to put a speech together, doing a TEDx talk, trying to get something a little bit more powerful, I'm offering 30 minutes introductory session. Just talk to me and see what I can do to give you some speaking coaching. Tomorrow, another friend, Ruth Fogg, will be with me, a hypnotherapist and therapist generally, and we'll be talking a little bit about her background, how she's got into speaking and what she's doing with herself. For now, thank you for being with me, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow.